What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Cjthecheesedj here, and we are back with a new ARK Insight and a bit of a new series for the ARK Insight. So as you guys would know, if you're fans of the channel, we normally do ARK Insight videos and we normally compare stats of dinosaurs against each other and whatnot. Well, today we're doing something a little bit different. Today we're comparing, not really comparing, but we are taking a look at the roles of a single dinosaur. Now you can expect to see more of these videos. We're just kicking it off first here with the Rex, and essentially what we'll be doing is with these videos is we'll be going through and we'll be showing you guys certain builds that you can use for your dinosaurs to increase their lethality as well as show what roles they're able to accomplish. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we actually start, this Rex here, you can see this is going to be the same for all the videos. These guys here are 150 tames, however they are wild tames. So their stats are completely random. We have no control over what their stats are after we tame them. So they're wild stats. So for example, its health looks a little bit low on the low side, whereas his stamina definitely got the extra points when we technically tamed him up. So there is that to take into consideration as well. But essentially what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be adding a crap ton of XP to these guys, and we'll be showing you some different builds that you can potentially use for each of these dinosaurs that are shown throughout these videos. Now we will be doing quite a lot of these. Obviously we're going to try and do one for each dinosaur. Hopefully we can do that. If not, well then just bear with me guys while I try and get them out for you. But first off, we're kicking it off with the Rex, mainly to explain to you guys this is what we're going to be doing because, well, people are going to watch it, obviously, because it's the Rex. Now, you can see here that the Rex currently has 72 points available for him. He's fully leveled up, max leveled, so you can no longer level this guy up anymore. But what we're going to do first is we're going to show you just how much his base damage is at the moment. Now, the T-Rex, we're going to go over their abilities as well through these videos, but you can see that the T-Rex deals 201 damage per bite. He also has a secondary ability where he does a roar, which causes creatures to poop themselves. Smaller creatures anyway, as well as humans. However, they do have to be higher level than the Rex for this to have effect on them. So that is essentially the Rex's abilities covered. Now we're going to go into some of the roles. Now there are two primary roles that you want to use the Rex for. You can use him as a tank, or you can use him as a convoy, kind of transporting of large materials and whatnot, like base transportation. If you want to spot base locations and whatnot, you can use this guy because he is relatively fast. Like, he does cover quite a bit of ground, and if you do have a Rex with a decent amount of stamina, you can get pretty far with him. As well as that, I think every other dinosaur will not bother to attack you. The obviously only dinosaur that will attack you is Gigas, and I think other Rexes might attack you. So you pretty much stand no opposition in terms of moving base locations. However, on a PvP server, you may come across other players, but then you are on a Rex. They're most likely not going to bother you, I can guarantee you that. So, for this convoy transport, dinosaur build kind of thing, you want to make sure that the Rex has a decent amount of stamina. Now, you can see we've got 72 points available to us. Now, the stamina on the Rex obviously needs to be at least 3,000. There you go, you can see there 3,000. Now, do take into mind that we have our stats slightly boosted. Actually, no, we don't. We shouldn't have them boosted. Let's just pump melee damage here. So our stats aren't actually boosted. We've just gone and checked. So this is actually correct to official. Now, you can see the weight is going up by about 30. You want to bump that up as well decently. You know, 3,000 stamina is quite a bit of stamina for the Rex. You don't really need to worry too much about that. But do take into mind as well, these guys are land dinos. There are quicker ways of probably transporting stuff over the air using, say, Argies or Quetzals. But if you do want to use a Rex, definitely pump his weight up to at least 1,500. The only downside to this is that obviously the Rex does not reduce the weight of any materials in his inventory. So there is that to think about as well. Now you can see his stamina is about 3k. His weight is about 1,500. You could potentially pump his weight up to 2,000 if you so choose to. However, do take into mind that this is the actual 72 levels that you get straight off the bat. So you won't obviously have all these available to you straight away. You need to obviously level him up. But you then need to probably put the rest of the points into movement speed. Now you can dabble a bit in health. Probably 5 points of health. Get him up to at least 12k health. There you go. You can see there. Now you've got yourself a transport Rex. Now this guy will be great because he obviously moves faster. He can carry a lot more weight. He still does the 201 damage per bite, which is great. Oh, there you go. You can see there 205 because we leveled it up by a little bit. But you're easily able to transport and navigate the terrain. Now, as well as that, the Rex does not struggle getting up the small boulders or past them anymore, since they did address that in the TLC patch. So there really shouldn't be anything really stopping him in the way of getting to your new base location or to your base by ferrying the items that you need. You know, you can take this guy on raids as well. You can see there we got up the cliff pretty easily and use this guy to ferry the items out of a raid because he's got the health, he's got the weight, he's got the movement speed. You could easily get out of that raid real quick with a Rex. You know, people aren't going to attack you as much if you're running a Rex in comparison to, say, like an RG or something like that, because the Rex deals a crap ton more damage. So that is the Convoy Transport Rex build. We're going to take you through another build. We're going to use, this is the main primary one of the Rexes. The majority of the people use, you know, you don't really see people using Convoy Rexes, but this is just one of the builds that you can use. So we're going to jump off this guy, we're going to summon in a new one, and we'll show you guys the new Rex build. Okay, so this is the second Rex. Now, the second Rex, well, I mean, any Rexes, to be honest with you. Now, the build we're going to be focusing on here is the boss killing build. Now, this build can be used across all your Rexes because, well, it serves more than one purpose than killing bosses. You can use this to raid, you can use this to PvP against other players. You can use this guy to deal a lot of damage to anything it comes across. So, this build here, mainly, all you need to do is level up his health and his melee damage. Now you can see here the difference between this Rex and the first Rex. The first Rex had about 2,000 points into stamina. This one's only got 1,400. And the first Rex also had about 9k health. This one's only got 8.5. Whereas this one has an extra 10 points in weight, but I think the majority of this one's extra points has gone into food by the looks of it. Now this build focuses on bumping up its health and its melee damage. Now ideally, to deal with bosses and, you know, just general PvP and fighting back against your enemies, you want to level up your health to at least 15k. Now you can see here, the Rex area is at about 15k health, which is a great amount of health to have. Okay, so once you've pumped the health of your Rex up to about 15k, I mean, you can choose to pump it up more, but you can put a few points into stamina as well. Now, something that I do want to mention here is that if you are taking your Rexes into battle against the bosses, and you've got your primary Rex, so your main Rex that you're actually going to ride, that you've imprinted on and everything, don't pump up in any stamina into any of your other Rexes that are just going to help you attack. So the Rexes that aren't being ridden, you don't need to put any points into stamina for them, because they're not going to utilize stamina while no one is riding them. You only want to put points into stamina on the Rexes that you're actually going to ride. So do take that into mind as well. Now, in terms of weight, you don't need to really worry about weight all that much. Their base weight is high enough if you tame a 150 Rex or breed them. The weight you don't need to worry about for this particular battle. Same goes for movement speed. Now, with the rest of the points, you're mainly going to want to put them into melee damage. You want to bump this melee damage up to at least 500, which you should reach, depending on how high the Rex's melee damage percentage is when you first get him, and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of varying factors that come into play here. You want to make sure that they have a good base melee damage when you first tame them up, and then you're obviously going to breed them selectively so they get that extra melee damage percentage. But you remember earlier, we were only doing 201 damage with the Rex Bite. Well, now we're not doing any damage that you can see because we've turned it off to make sure that we had the right numbers. So we're going to get the damage back up, but I can tell you now, we are definitely doing more than 201 damage. This Bronto didn't even last a second against, well, he did last more than a second, but we're going to show you the actual damage numbers. Alrighty, so now that we've fixed up the floating damage numbers, you guys should see how much damage we are dealing. Now before, like I said, we were doing 201. We are now doing 299 damage. Now that might not seem like a lot, but you've got to remember the base damage of this Rex was only 260 something, I believe. So if you manage to get a Rex with at least 350 points in melee damage, like 350% melee damage, you can get a very strong Rex with a lot of melee damage. Now, like I said, you've got to make sure that you look into their wild stats before you tame them up. Like, you can knock them out and take a look at their wild stats, punch it into the Dodo Dex or the ARK Wiki or anything like that, and you actually get told how many points get put into their melee damage. Now, you obviously want to try and tame up Rexes that have a lot of melee damage points and health points for this particular build, so you can take on all the bosses and absolutely wreck their faces. Now, one thing that I do want to mention quickly just before we end the video is make sure that if you are riding the Rex, make sure you do pump some points into stamina for it, otherwise you will lose stamina while fighting the bosses and you could potentially torpor yourself out. It's highly unlikely because the Rex has such high torpor, but it can still happen. As for your other Rexes that you bring into the boss fights, don't worry about pumping any stamina into them. They don't need it. They just want health and melee damage. That's all you really need for boss fight Rexes, other than the ones that you're riding on. So guys, that'll conclude today's ARK Insight Rex builds. Let me know what you guys thought of these this video down below, and whether or not you'd like to see more of them. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about them. But other than that, guys, thanks very much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next one.